Well, thank you all so much for joining us this morning. I'm really excited to tell you what we are planning. We are really excited that we are planning for camp in 2021. It was a hard year for us, not seeing all of you in 2020, and we can't wait to have you back. So I have a presentation to share with you. And we'll give you all the information as we have it right now. You'll have a chance to ask questions, and we'll let you know how we're going to follow up on some of the pieces that we don't have, like written protocol on yet, because we are very much staying on top of all the new information that's coming in. So we'll probably be fine tuning things, right up until the summer to make sure we really have the best plan in place. So I'm Jenn Cronholm-Clark. I'm the program director here at Silver Lake, and we have Ryan.
Good morning, I'm Ryan Gackenheimer. I'm the executive director here at Silver Lake.
All right, so I'm going to share my screen so that you can see all the info. All right. So we really missed you last year. And as I was saying, we can't wait to get back to this. As I'm sure you're all aware that we had to cancel our summer program last year. But so at the time when we canceled, we did not have a lot of information about how the virus acted, what we could do safely. And frankly, we didn't have enough time to really pivot. Our program, as we traditionally run it, is very complicated, lots of moving pieces, lots of volunteers, and just trying to turn it into something that would be safe during a pandemic is just difficult.
Your share screen is showing your notes.
Hold on, let me fix my share. Huh, why is it doing that? It says it's sharing the right one.
Maybe it's just me.
No, you may be sharing a desktop accidentally. I would stop and restart and see if you can close the one.
Sorry about that. I have been working from home on a different computer with two screens, and I'm actually in the office and I have only one screen, and it has gotten very complicated. Let's see. That's a bird.
I was able to see what you were sharing, yeah.
But did it have the notes on the bottom, or was it full screen with the pretty picture?
Now it's full screen.
Okay, before you were seeing the notes?
Yes, you're good now.
Okay. All right, I may not be able to have my notes up, so we'll see how I do without all my notes. So as I was saying, we had to, for safety's sake, cancel last summer, but now we have a lot more information. We have had a lot more time to plan, and we think we can have overnight camp safely this year, which we're very excited for. There were, in the state of Connecticut, the state actually said that overnight camps were not allowed to run in 2020, but there were states around us that did run overnight camp successfully. So we are looking to them, what worked for them, and learning as much as we can. And so we have put together a plan that we're going to present to you today. And as I mentioned, not every detail is fully fleshed out at this point, but we think we have enough that we can move forward. And your questions and your comments during this presentation or afterward are really going to help us make this the best possible plan so that we can have that amazing Silver Lake experience and keep everyone safe. Now, is it going to let me advance? There we go. All right. So the way that we ran summer camp in 2019, you can see the picture on the left there where we have lots of kids very close together, all up in each other's space. And it feels a little weird to look at that picture now after we've all gotten used to our masks and our social distancing. But we learned a lot from 2020. We learned that we can change and adapt, that we are able to do a lot of our core ministry, even when we can't be together. So we ran that virtual program last summer, which was a great success. And we found that we could still learn a lot about loving ourselves, loving God, loving our neighbor, and loving creation, even when we weren't physically together. And we were able to build some good community, which was really cool. So the other thing that we're learning right now is we have been running, maybe you've seen advertised, or maybe you've come and participated in an adventure day. We actually have one going today, which I'm going to run out to right after this. And that's the picture on the right. And so you can see already we've got masks on, we're socially distanced, it's a smaller group. And that's really going to be key to everything that we do going forward. And what we're learning from the Adventure Day program is that we can still have that really core Silver Lake experience with these modifications in place. I had a young woman at one of these programs. She had never been to Silver Lake before, had never done the ropes course, was very nervous about climbing and heights. And I encouraged her. I said, you know what, let's just clip you into the harness, see how you feel about that. And I showed her how everything worked. And she's like, okay, I'm going to try the ladder. I'm just going to try climb the ladder. So she did. She climbed the ladder and she got to the top of the ladder and she just kept going. And she went up the pole and she stepped out onto the beam, the cross beam of the catwalk. And it was amazing. She just went and she did it. And her entire group was at the ground cheering her on and so excited to see this because they were in a youth group together. So they did know each other. And that was just such a mountaintop moment for her that we were able to provide even with all of these modifications in place. And so it was really gratifying to me to know that we can be really creative, we can really modify things, keep people safe, and we can still provide that core camp experience that is what you're looking for when you come to Silver Lake. All right, and I'm going to have Ryan talk a little bit about the ACA.
Yeah, thanks, Jen. So Silver Lake Conference Center is accredited by the American Camp Association, which is the camping industry in the United States, really in the world, and accredits camps, both faith-based camps like Silver Lake, but as well as camps across the board, for-profit, nonprofit camps. And so fortunately, ACA has done a ton of work in conjunction with another professional entity that does health stuff specifically to put together a huge guide for us in terms of how we can think about and how we do camp safely. They released the guide just in time for last summer for states where it was possible to run camp. And they just a week ago actually released another updated version of that we are still digging into the 140 plus pages of that document. So that'll be a big part of the information we use and have to work through the summer and how we keep our campers safe. Another is that we're a part of ACA New England and ACA Tri-State, which is New York, New Jersey, and actually I don't even know who the third one is, but it doesn't matter. Pennsylvania, sorry, there we go, that's who the third is. And have been doing lots of webinars. And so most recently I was on one and we got to learn from 4 camps that actually operated last summer that were in Vermont, Maine, and New Hampshire. And so learned a lot from their learnings and the ways they were actually able to keep their campers safe last summer when there was still not as much clarity about what the COVID virus does and how it transmits and things like that. So a lot of learning since then. And one of the key takeaways from all of those settings, as well as the CDC information, is about having a plan in place. And what is the particular plan for your setting? Because every setting is very unique in the way it operates and who their campers are and how they staff. And so along with having that plan is making sure everyone understands it, is on board, and really gets their piece of the puzzle and how that fits into the larger context of keeping everyone safe. So some of those will include, part of that plan we know for sure will include a test before arriving. So all campers and staff will get a COVID test before arriving at camp, and we'll need to have a negative test within the 7 days before they arrive here. And then we'll also do another test when we get here. Jen will talk more about the details of that and what that'll look like as we evolve, but those are pieces of that. And then campers are staying in smaller groups, so it'll look different. There will not be a Fun in the Sun, for example, that has 70 campers in it. We'll have much smaller groups that we're traveling in, and they'll really stay to their communities. Hygiene, so hand washing as we normally do, but we'll also have hand sanitizer all over camp. I think Jen might even talk about some of the way we're doing that in high ropes as part of the work down there. And then we have already, because as Jen said, we have been welcoming guests through the retreat season, we have already put in place a very stringent cleaning and disinfecting process that'll continue into the summer and will be adapted for that setting as well. And of course, all of our staff will be trained on this. That's part of getting them all on the same page to make sure we're good to go there. An organization that you may or may not have even heard of in the state of Connecticut is the Office of Early Childhood. And their primary function is working with early education. So daycare, preschools in Connecticut, they set all of those standards and certifications that preschools have to meet. Uniquely in the state of Connecticut, camps and outdoor ministry is under the care of the Office of Early Childhood. So this is one of those cases where it's actually an advantage to be under them because they've already been working for 9 months figuring out how to keep little people safe, keep that staff safe, and how to do that. So that'll translate very nicely to a camp setting as they're putting out the guidelines that the state will have in place for us. One of the great things is that Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine and Massachusetts all had the possibility of running residential camp last year. And so they had very detailed restrictions about what the camps had to do. So my hope is that Governor Lamont will look north to our neighbors and look at those and see the way that those states were successful in running summer camp and really learn from the procedures and policies that were in place for those 4 states and then shape ours that way. Governor Lamont is the one who issued the executive order last summer that said residential camp could not run in Connecticut in 2020. And so his task force may come up with something completely unique, but my hope is he'll look north at those regulations that were in place and kept campers safe in 2020, and that'll be what gets used here in 2021. The way we have set up our summer and we'll be going into our season of enrollment is we have looked at what the restrictions were in Connecticut in terms of the phased reopening in Connecticut. And we set our standards, our number of campers, staffing size, and camper group size based on 2020. So if things are better in 2021, that's great, but we're already prepared to be as stringent as it was last summer and still be able to safely operate camp within those restrictions. And the state of Connecticut doesn't have right now its own set of reopening restrictions for camp. We are operating off of the hospitality industry, the restaurant industry, the event industry. And so we're looking at all 3 and meeting all 3 of those. And by the summertime, the state will definitely have something specific to camps. But right now we've taken a very conservative approach to make sure whatever we're putting in place will definitely meet those. And it might mean we actually get to expand a little bit from what last summer looked like, because hopefully by then Connecticut will be in a lot better place. And feel free to put questions and comments in the chats. I'll be watching that as Jen continues to give you more information.
Great, thank you. So I'm just going to give you an overview of where we're going so you know what categories we're going to cover. As Ryan said, if you have questions that come up along the way, put them in the chat, and there will definitely be time for questions at the end. And at this point, I'm just going to give you a really brief, broad view, and then we will dive into the details of each section. So what we're going to talk about today is the program design. Our traditional program design is 7 weeks of 1-week sessions. This year, we are going to do 3 2-week sessions. So the campers will be here for 2 weeks instead of 1 week. We are only going to have 4 conferences per session. In a typical year, we have 5 and sometimes even more than 5 conferences per session, but this year we're limiting it to 4. There will be 21 conferees, those are our campers, per conference. As Ryan said, this keeps us well within guidelines for phase 2 reopening in Connecticut in terms of group sizes. Then we will talk about the safety protocols, and we've already sort of started on that, but we will, we're limiting the group size so that we can keep our groups small so that we can isolate as we need to. We are limiting the interactions between groups. So in a typical year, there would be opportunities for different conferences to interact more, and we're going to limit how much that happens. As Ryan mentioned, we'll have testing protocols in place so that we are sure that we are doing enough testing to keep everyone healthy. And our summer staff will be restricted to camp. So on their days off, they will still stay on camp so that we know that they are not going out and potentially being exposed to something. And we are revising our policies around having visitors. In a typical summer, we do sometimes have a guest speaker come in, or someone who's just sharing a project or a program just for the day. We are likely not going to be able to do that. And if we do have the ability to do that, there will be really strict protocols around that. So we are revising that policy. We're putting into place policies around our vendors that come in, when we get a food delivery and all of that, to make sure that we're isolating as much as possible. And we are going to talk a little bit about our staffing changes. The traditional model at Silver Lake relies heavily on volunteers, and we have volunteers that come in for a week. We are unfortunately not going to be able to do that this year. So what we are doing is we are reconfiguring our staff. Our counseling staff who had been volunteers in the past will now be paid staff who are here for the entire summer. As I said, we won't have the volunteers coming in and out the way that we have in the past. Our staff will need to be age 18 and up. This is a change. We typically start at 16 for staff, so this year they will be a little bit older. And then at the end, I'll tell you about registration information. We'll go over the dates, we'll go over the pricing, and I'll talk a little bit about scholarships. All right. Okay, so we're going to dive in, starting with program. So our theme for summer 2021 is Creation Speaks, which I'm really excited about. This is a great theme for Silver Lake. We do a lot of environmental education here. So this will give us an opportunity.
Out of the basement.
Oh, I'm sorry. Can you mute yourself, please?
It's in the game closet.
Here we go. And so I mentioned those 2-week sessions. So the dates for the sessions will be June 28th to July 9th is the first one. Second is July 21st to the 23rd. And the third is July 26th to August 6th. And if you are not looking at a calendar, you may not realize that this also is a slight change from how we usually do things. So drop off will be on a Sunday afternoon, which is typical what we usually do. And then we'll be here for a whole week over the weekend, and then the next week, and then campers will be picked up on a Friday afternoon. So that's a big change for us too, to have pickup on a Friday. That gives our staff and the camp 2 full days in between sessions to do that deep cleaning, to give our staff a break, and to just give us a little bit of buffer between sessions. So that's why we've made that change. Another thing I'm excited about with the 2-week sessions is that we get to have the campers for a weekend, which we've never done before. Typically, our weekends do not have campers here. It's just a staff and volunteer training time. So I'm excited for the possibilities of what we can do to make those weekends really special. I have some great ideas, a fun Saturday night, something a little bit later, and then an easy Sunday morning, maybe sleep in, maybe have donuts. It's all about the donuts, right? And so I'm excited for what we can do over the weekend. The other thing about the 2-week sessions is that it's going to give us the opportunity to really bond as a community with the smaller groups and the longer time together. You always make lifelong friends at Silver Lake, and in 2021, that's going to be true to the 100th degree. We're going to have these great groups of campers that really bond and really get to practice being in community together. So the way the program itself will work in each session is that each session will have a theme for the week. So Down and Dirty is our earth care theme, creation care. We're really going to get into some of the environmental fun stuff. We'll learn about how the environment works. We'll learn about how we need to take care of it. And we'll have fun. We'll dig in the garden and we'll spend time in the woods and probably, do some exploration of our pond life, all that kind of great stuff. So another change you may notice as you're looking at these plans is the age range. So because we have the longer sessions, we are going to have a little bit older camper this summer. So we will start with rising 5th graders. So if you're currently in 4th grade, you'll be going into 5th grade this summer. And then on the other end of it, we are going to include recent graduates. So those young folks who graduate from high school in 2021, so they just finished their senior year, will be eligible to attend our oldest conference. Part of the reasoning for that is that we know that there are some campers out there who missed their last year. They aged out in 2020. They were excited to come for their last year. And so this is just an opportunity for them to still have that last year experience. The second session, Water World, is going to be focused on issues of water. We'll do extra swimming, extra boating, and really look into how important a resource water is and what we need to do to take care of it. And then the third session, Just Camp. The Just stands for Justice and Service Training. That was a conference we were going to run for the first time in 2020. And we actually did switch it to a virtual conference. So we have a lot of great stuff. And this is the idea of what is our role as good Christians in taking care of the world around us, the people around us, the world around us, our communities. What is our obligation there? What are we called to do? So we'll look into a whole bunch of different justice issues and we'll have a lot of fun. Each session, the theme will be tackled slightly differently on the age group. So it gives us some flexibility. You know, 5th and 6th graders are going to have a really high energy, hands-on, fun, active experience. And of course, we're still going to do some high energy, active, hands-on stuff with the high schoolers, but we'll also incorporate some more discussion, some more intellectual pursuits as well. So it allows us to shift the focus a little bit and really deliver appropriate for the age group. All right, I'll pause for a minute before we dive into the safety protocols. Ryan, I'm not able to see the chat right now. Are there any program questions we should address right now?
Yes, sorry if there's squeal. Question was around what happens if the group size shrinks for the state of Connecticut as it is right now. We'll be able to adjust just having smaller groups. We're staffing in a way that'll accommodate that. It would just look different.
Yeah, we'll get creative with our use of buildings and just make the group smaller with, if we have to hire some more staff, that's what we'll do. All right, we're ready to go on to safety protocols. All right. So we talked a little bit about testing, and the caveat here is that we understand that sometimes testing is hard to get right now, but we are optimistic based on the trends that we have seen that testing is going to become more widespread, more easily available, and that we'll be able to get the results in a reasonable time frame. And sort of adding into that, Ryan was talking about what other camps did, and I know there was a camp in New Hampshire that was able to, get a partnership with a lab so that they were able to get all of the tests that they needed. So we will explore all the possibilities of how we're going to make sure that everyone has the tests that we need. So the idea is that all the campers will test, before they come to camp, and that they will quarantine before they come to camp as well. All the specific details of this are going to be worked out closer to the time that you're arriving at camp, so that we'll be able to tell you before you get, before we get 2 weeks out of camp, what exactly that quarantine is going to look like and what our expectations are. But certainly from the time that they're tested until they get here, we're going to want them to be pretty strictly quarantined. And then when they arrive at camp, we will retest everyone so that we are certain that we've caught anything that comes in the best of our ability. And then within their very small groups, they'll be able to, act as a pod, basically. The same process is going to be used with our summer staff. Our summer staff are going to come in 2 weeks ahead of the beginning of camp. They'll get a test before they come in. We'll retest them when they're here, and we will all quarantine together before any campers arrive so that we're sure that we haven't brought anything in with us. We've been talking about the smaller group size. So I mentioned we're looking at 21 conferees per conference. That allows us, the phase 2 recommendation for indoor groups is 25. So 21 conferees and 4 counselors allows us to use indoor spaces when we need to and still be within those group size limitations. And again, only the 4 conferences per week instead of 5. And they'll be podded as much as possible. Their counselors will travel around with them as they go to different activities. And then if someone were to get sick, it would be easier to isolate who they may have been exposed to, and fewer people would be affected. What we've seen at other camps, we will totally be acting under the advisement of our health department. So whatever the state, the OEC, the health department tells us we need to do, we will, call them, say we've had this positive case, and here's what we know about it, and they will tell us, who we need to quarantine, whether people have to leave camp, how that's all going to play out, and we will obviously do whatever they tell us we need to do to keep people safe. But because our campers will be more isolated, our goal is to have as few people affected as possible if someone did get sick. And another part that will be key is that families will need to have a plan for how they are going to pick up their camper in case they do get sick, because we can't have, if we have a suspected case or a confirmed case, we can't have them staying overnight with us. We have a way to isolate them, and we'll take good care of them, but they really do need to leave camp as soon as possible. So that will be a commitment that our families are going to need to make. I talked a little bit about staff and visitors. As I said, the summer staff will need to stay at camp on their days off, again, so that they are limiting their exposure as much as possible. We will be using masks especially when interacting with outside of our pod. The exact procedure for when you need to wear a mask and when you don't need to wear a mask will be evolving over the spring as we get all the details fine-tuned, but I do expect that there will be some mask wearing during camp this summer. I mentioned we're working on protocols for vendors, visitors, non-residential staff, all of that to make sure that we are limiting our exposure as much as possible. And just in general, we will have fewer people coming and going from camp. We're really gonna keep that as much to a minimum as we can. All right, I'll pause again. Ryan, is there anything in the chat that we need to address?
A question of clarification about quarantining. We are very aware that families cannot stop working for 2 weeks so that their camper can come to Silver Lake. And so my hope is that the state will actually give us more direction on like some helpful guidelines on how to be a little extra careful during that time when your camper is quarantining. So camper quarantining, we fully are aware, like someone has to go grocery shopping in the family. Parents probably have to go to work, or I imagine they are going to work. So completely understand that, but shifting the way the camper is flowing through the world before they come to camp for those 2 weeks ahead of time. There was Jen, are you talking about check-in, check-out process later on? A question just popped up in the chat for that.
No, we should address that now.
Okay, great. So Missy asked, is there a scheduled check-in and check-out time? We have not gotten to that level of detail. We actually did that a couple of summers ago as an experiment. One thing we do know for sure about check-in and check-out, families will not get out of the car. So you'll pull up, your camper will hop out, grab their bags and whatever other gear they need, and then they'll wave goodbye, and the parents will be, or whoever's dropping the camper off will be on their way. So it'll look very different at check-in and check-out. Rather than the family getting out of the car, they'll stay in the car, which means we'll need to schedule a variety of things differently in terms of check-in, but we may do check-in, check-out time. Makes a lot of sense in terms of limiting traffic so we can help keep that flow moving. Question about schools in Connecticut have to wear masks in their cohorts, so not using a mask, not in the pods, is really risky. Will that be looked at? There are mask breaks, but on all day. So Jen, you want to jump on that one?
Yeah, as I said, we are still refining all of those policies. I don't know exactly what they're going to look like, but you can't wear a mask when you're sleeping, right? So we know that there are going to be times when we're not wearing masks, which is why we're putting in all this testing and asking you to quarantine before you get here. But yes, we are going to look very carefully at those masking policies and make sure we are doing what makes sense with all the information that we have. All right. I want to talk a little bit about what our summer staff is going to look like, because this is one of the biggest changes that we're making for the summer. So these are some of our lovely summer staffers. These are wonderful people. I hope they will be back this year because I love working with them. But as I mentioned, we are not going to be able to have our typical volunteers this summer. There's just in our traditional structure, there's just too many people coming and going. And it's just really hard to manage that kind of risk. So we are changing from having volunteer counselors to having a paid counseling staff. So our program staff, which is what I'm calling them right now, I might come up with a more fun name for that before the summer, will consist of 2 coordinators who are like the team leaders who will oversee everything, 16 cabin counselors, so that's 4 counselors for each conference, and then 4 floating programs. I say floating, they're not really going to like float between groups. They'll be assigned to a conference. Each of the 4 will be assigned to a conference, but they're sort of like the extra help, extra hands during the day. They won't necessarily be sleeping in the cabins with the kids. We are going to train our cabin counselors on how to run all the extra programs that is what our traditional summer staff have usually done. So things like arts and crafts and ceramics, the nature program, those kinds of things. The counselors will learn how to lead all those programs, campfires, night hikes, all that great stuff that we always do. We are also going to try cross-train the counselors so that we have several lifeguards in each conference and several people who are trained rope staff in each conference. So that way, when the conference goes to the waterfront for swim time, they're bringing their lifeguards with them. So there's not that exposure to a new person there. In order to make that work, we will still need to have a waterfront coordinator and an A team. A stands for adventure. That's our challenge course team, adventure team coordinator to really manage those 2 program areas. They'll be in charge of training those staff, making sure everyone's following all the safety protocols, and then we're all safe. And then so those are the people who will be interacting directly with campers. And then we will also need to have a kitchen staff to feed us. Chef Lynn will work with a kitchen coordinator and 4 to 5 kitchen staff. And then we'll have a maintenance and housekeeping staff who will work with our site manager, Matt. So we'll have a coordinator for that team and 8 to 9 housekeeping staff who will work with the site manager and the coordinator who will be responsible for general maintenance and all the cleaning that needs to take place. Other important people that we are planning to have this summer include our chaplains. So we have traditionally had a different chaplain each week. The chaplain is an authorized minister in the United Church of Christ. And they provide general support to campers. They provide spiritual support. They help enrich our worship and the different faith-based pieces that we do throughout the week. In an ideal world, we would have one chaplain who is here for the entire summer. That would be very difficult to find that person who is qualified and able to be here for the whole summer. So we are entertaining the idea of having one chaplain per session who would then follow all the same protocols that the campers are following in terms of quarantining and testing before they get here. And nurses. So a key support to this program is going to be having 2 nurses per session. There are several reasons for this. We typically have 1 nurse come in and stay with us for the full week. And they're on duty, 24/7. Moving to the 2-week session, it's really unreasonable to ask anybody to be on duty 24/7 for 2 weeks. So we're going to spread that out, have 2 nurses per session so that they can, get time off and relax and recharge themselves so that they can be good nurses. It also allows us, if we were to have any issues where we needed to quarantine a camper, we would be able to have 1 nurse focused on that problem while the other nurse is continuing to keep camp running. Our nurses have an RN or higher certification. We often have APRNs who are working with us. We have a great nursing staff team who is working with us ahead of the summer to make sure that all our procedures are really, up to snuff on the medical end of things. All right, pause on the safety before we get into the nuts and bolts of registration. Any questions in the chat we should address?
A quick question or a quick comment about ventilation. So if you've been to Silver Lake, you know that the cabins are very open air with screens, so no concern there. We have lots of window and box fans at Silver Lake, so that's what we'll have in every room in the year-round buildings to keep that moving as well. So we'll be having those accessible and using those to keep airflow moving.
Yep, and we will be outside as much as possible. And we do have covered spaces when the weather is not that great so that we can still be in those spaces that have that great ventilation. All right, so registration information. First, I want to just say thank you to all of our 2020 families who were registered, got that bad news that we had to cancel, and they chose to either roll over the payments they had already made or convert them to a donation. That was an amazing thing that these families did, and we are entirely grateful. And it has really helped us get through this 2020 year that has been so strange. So as a thank you to those families, we're going to open registration a little bit early for them so that they are able to be sure that they can, get in if they, if this program works for them this summer. So the 2020 families will be able to start registering on December 15th. General registration will open January 15th, which is the same as what it's been for a number of years. We are keeping the deposit at $150, so you just need that $150 deposit to register. We are still writing our refund policy, but I want to assure you that it will be reasonable and generous. We don't want anyone to be put in the position of feeling like they have to send a sick camper to camp because they're going to lose their money. So we want to be sure that you feel comfortable with these policies. So those are still in the works. I can't tell you the exact details of them, but I assure you that we will be very reasonable with those. All right, so 2020 summer fees. So as you can imagine, 2 weeks of camp is going to cost more than 1 week of camp. So we have had to raise our fees, and we are keeping with the tiered pricing so that families can choose what they can afford to pay. And I know for Silver Lake, it's a little bit shocking to see these big numbers. Silver Lake is committed to keeping our costs as low as possible. And we are typically dramatically below similar camps. We are still below similar camps, but just not as dramatically below them as we have been in the past. So the actual cost, which is our top tier, is $1,900. The first discount, $1,750. Second discount, $1,600. We have all kinds of payment plans. So as I said, we kept the required deposit at $150. That required non-refundable deposit is really low so that you can go ahead and register. We're going to help you sort of plan out how to make these payments. So we're going to ask that you plan to have half of your balance paid by April 1st, and then we'll do the remainder by June 1st. When you go in to register, there's a really nice feature of the registration system where you can set up payments on your credit card or whatever you're using to pay with so that you can spread that payment out over the 6 months or however long between your registration and when you arrive. We are committed to providing scholarships. A big part of our mission is making camp accessible to as many people as possible. We are committed to both racial and economic diversity. So if your family will be looking for scholarship support, what we ask you to do is to register with a $150 deposit. And then when you get into your registration account, there's a form in there, a scholarship application that you can fill out and then get reviewed for scholarship assistance. We are also really encouraging you to talk with your church or your association. Many of our churches have scholarship money for Silver Lake, and there are also several associations that are very generous with their support of Silver Lake. So we ask you to check with your church to see what funding might be available to help you out there. And I assure you Silver Lake is doing a lot of outreach to churches as well to encourage them to increase their scholarship funds this year. And then we have had in 2019, I believe was the first year that we had our Joseph Clemens Scholarship Fund available, which is a scholarship fund specifically to support families of color. We expect that we will have that money available this year as well. So we do have some funding set aside specifically for our families of color. So all that is to say, we're going to do everything we can to get you here. We know this is a big change in fees, and we're going to support you the best we can to make it happen. All right, so we are just so excited. I know this is a ton of information, but basically what it comes down to is we're just so excited that we're going to be able to welcome you here this summer. We have missed you so much, and we can't wait to have campers back here. So thank you again for being here. I'm going to end the presentation and then we'll go through what questions you have. So what else can we tell you? You can either put it in the chat or you can unmute yourself and ask a question. Oh, someone's got to have something. Can review the registration schedule again. Yep. Okay, so for 2020 families who rolled over their money, we're going to open registration on December 15th. General registration will open on January 15th. And as for payments, you'll need the $150 deposit to register. And then we're looking for half of the balance by April 1st, and then the remainder of the balance on June 1st.
Jen,
Oh, go ahead, Deborah.
hi, Jen. When are you hiring staff? Are you pulling from the staff from last year, or are you having like specific timelines for when you're hiring staff?
Yeah, great, thanks. I am hoping I have to completely revise my staff application, so that's going to take me a minute to do, but I'm hoping to open staff applications in December. I'd love to have it open on December 15th at the beginning of that first wave of registration. And take applications through January and begin the interview process in January. That is my goal. We have reached out to our past summer staff. We gave them a very similar presentation so they understand all of this. We've also reached out to our former volunteers, our past volunteers, so that we hope that there will be we have some really rock star counselors in that group, and we are hoping that some of them, this will appeal to them, that they want to spend the whole summer here now because they get to counsel for the whole summer. So we're going to cast our net very wide, and we have a deep pool of talent to draw from. So I'm optimistic that we'll get some really excited, wonderful people here this summer.
And there
Jen,
was a question about tiered pricing and
Yep.
how that works with multiple campers.
Yep, so we don't have a multi-camper discount. The tiered pricing is really to allow you to choose what level is best for your family. When you go into registration, you'll just be asked to choose how much you want to pay. There are no strings attached to this. It's confidential. If you choose a higher price, you're not buying more camp. You're not buying a better experience. Everyone has the same experience. It's just a way to let those families who are able to give back a little bit to help out those families who need a little bit more support.
Jen,
Yeah, Meg.
hi. My kiddo is Chase Moreau, who was going to be moved
Yes.
off last year, and I might have missed some information. I came to the meeting late, but did you just say that there was something sent out to staff? Would that have included him? Because I didn't see.
Yes,
anything come
it
through.
would have. It goes directly to his email address, which I know I have had some trouble getting him to respond to that. So there was an email invitation sent to him, and it was also posted in our staff Facebook group. So I'm sorry that you missed that. And if you have any further questions, I'm happy to have a follow-up conversation with you.
I'm so sorry.
I know.
All right. Yes, because we're trying to figure out how all this is going to work. Chase, can I tell them?
Yeah,
Right,
sure.
okay. So Chase has changed his name and pronouns. So they are now going by Kelly, Kelley, and they, them pronouns. So I'm struggling with people who don't know that yet and trying to respect the use of their proper new pronouns. So they have asthma, and so we've been super, super careful. So that's one of the concerns, but they were so disappointed, obviously, when everything got shut down, and would love to have Kelly be able to go back and be on Camp Family next summer. And I just obviously need to hear all the precautions. I'm sorry I missed the beginning of this meeting.
Yeah. So
I can check in with you personally too.
big hard thing is we are starting at age 18 for summer staff. I don't know if they're going to be 18 by the summer. I don't remember.
Now they'll be 17.
Yeah. So unfortunately, we are really hopeful that this is a one-year blip in our program and that we'll be able to go back to a more traditional model in the future. So the best opportunity right now is to come and do, we expanded the age of the campers a little bit older. So they would be very welcome to do another year as a camper. We'd love to have them. There's leadership training built into those high school programs. So it would be a great opportunity to get ready to be on staff the following summer.
Okay, all right. We'll talk about that and see what else you have, the other information that you have on that. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
I was wondering if, depending on staff exhaustion levels, et cetera, there might be some day programs or things like you've been offering that are for the younger kids that won't be able to come, who might have been counting on a Silver Lake experience. I think you've had younger ones coming in these adventure days, correct?
Yeah, the adventure days, we started at age 8, which is younger than what we've traditionally done. These programs have been hugely successful. The campers who have come have an amazing time. It's been really great for everybody involved. So I anticipate we will offer either more of the same or this plus something different throughout the spring. But we are not going to be able to run concurrent summer programs. We're really going to have to be focused on this one program for the summer. It's very quiet. Have we exhausted all your questions? So I know, again, oh, did I hear someone on mute? Go ahead.
Hi, this is Leslie. I was just wondering if you were going to have fuller descriptions of the different sessions.
Yes, I'm working on a print brochure, almost as we speak, not right at this second, but concurrent with all of this. So we will still mail out a print brochure, which will have descriptions of the different sessions. And we're aiming to get that into people's mailboxes the first week of December, and it will also be available online on our website.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So as I, have said, this is a lot of information. And if you've been with Silver Lake for a while, it's a lot of changes. And I understand that it might take you some time to digest. So I just want to say, please do reach out to me or Ryan at any time if you have questions that come up after today and you want to talk through anything. We are available to you to talk through all of this. And then I'm just looking at real quick. I have a form that you can put your information into. I'm just trying to find the link for that real quick. Sorry. Here it is. So, oops, that's not it. Here it is. So if you put your contact information into this form that I'm going to put in the chat, and we will email out this link as well if you aren't able to capture it right now. As we get all of our procedures written up and posted on our website, we'll email you and let you know, like, hey, we have a bunch of documentation up on the website. Please go review it. So if you're, my husband is really into reading all of that procedural stuff, and he's like, I want to read everything. I'm like, okay, we'll let you know when it's ready, and you can read it all. So we'll be very transparent about all of that and get that information out to you as quickly as we can. All right, I'm pausing for a minute, just if anyone wants to jump in with any last questions. All right, well, thank you all for joining us this morning. I'm really excited to see you. It's great to see some really familiar names and faces. And I'm looking forward to what we can do together in 2021. It's going to be a different summer, but it's going to be a great summer.
Great.
All
Thank you,
right.
Jen and Ryan.
Thanks,
you, everyone.
everyone.